everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Megan Olievi, live in my living room because we are being responsible and socially distant. Today we'll be chatting with two of the biggest stars from UFC 252, which all goes down this Saturday live right here in Las Vegas. And just a reminder, this is a fan Q&A. So even though it's virtual, we want to hear from you. Start submitting your questions, and our teams will be able to pull some of those so that Sean and DC will be able to answer them on this 30-minute or so chat. So thank you again for joining us. Let's get right into it and bring the fighters in. First off, I mean, he's one of the very few champs in all of UFC history. He looks to get his gold back this Saturday. You know him, the man, the myth, the legend, Daniel Cormier.
Hey, what's up?
Hi, how are you?
Hey, Rosendo, you're in my shot, man. Seriously.
Hey, Rosendo.
Hey, what's going on, Megan? How you doing?
Thanks for joining us, DC.
Oh, man, good. It's always good to see you, my friend, and always good to spend some time with the fans, you know? I love it.
Exactly. All right, we got to bring in one more person before we start. He's ranked number 14 in the UFC bantamweight division. He went from Dana White's Contender Series to just absolute stardom here in the co-main event of UFC 252. Sugar Sean O'Malley.
The Sugar Show! The Sugar Show has arrived! The Sugar Show!
What's up, DC? What's up, Megan?
Hey, I love this combo with you guys. I feel like this is so fun for everyone, including myself.
Yeah, fun fact, DC's commentated every one of my UFC fights so far. So, sweet to be on the same card as him.
He slept him! O'Malley slept him! Oh, my goodness!
Maybe we can get some sort of live cam in DC's locker room so he can watch your fight while he's warming up and still kind of call it for you.
There you go.
Perfect. All right. Well, fans have already been submitting a ton of questions, so I know they want to get right into them. So I think we have the first one, and I think it's about the UFC Apex, if I'm not mistaken. One of our fans was asking, what's it feel like to be in Vegas for a big live event, but knowing you'll be in the Apex without a crowd? I mean, Sean, I know you've already fought that way, and DC, you've called a bunch of these fights, but in terms of the experience itself, I mean, what are you expecting?
It's different. It's much different because when you have fought as long as I have, you experience a lot of the big crowds, right? And to be fighting in front of no crowd, I have to kind of go all the way back to my pro debut in 2009 because there weren't many people. But, it's a fight, and a fight can happen anywhere. And we fight just about every day in the gym, right? So it'll feel more like a sparring session. At least that's what I think from my experiences calling the fight and what I expect as the fight gets going.
Yeah, for me, the biggest thing wasn't necessarily the fight. It was after I dropped Eddie. I would have loved that explosive surge of energy from the crowd. During the fight, I'm a performer. That's what I feel like I'm best at, is performing and fighting. And you add the two together, and the Sugar Show is going to show up regardless of fans or not fans.
Absolutely. Daniel, I mean, have you given a lot of thought to the small cage? Does it make any difference to you?
The cage is the size of the Strikeforce cage, right? So my first 9 fights in my career, I fought in that smaller cage. I fought Bigfoot Silva in that cage. I fought Josh Barnett in that cage. I fought 9 fights in that small cage. So I'm not too worried about it. I know that it'll encourage more action, but if you watch me fight, I'm always in a person's face anyways, right? That's my fighting style, and it'll allow for me to get to his legs a little bit faster and easier.
Okay, fair enough. We've got another question. DC, this one's for you about your training partners, if we can pull that up. Cote Cruz, what are the greatest contributions that Luke and Kane make in the training room, especially for your final camp?
A lot mental. I think all the work part of what they brought was back in the day, right? 2009, 10, 11, 12, 15, before both of them started to kind of slow down a little bit in terms of their actual fighting. But it was a mental boost to be in there with the guys that I've spent so much time with. And when I'm surrounded by Kane and Luke, I look at 2 of my brothers, and we all started this thing together. And we all went to the moon, right? At one point, we all had UFC championships. So that was more of a mental boost to see those guys that have been the whole time in my corner supporting me, because whether I win, Megan, and whether I lose, I know you guys have seen me do both. I celebrate with Luke and Kane if they're taking pictures of us with the belts. And if I'm crying going to the back, the ones hugging me and holding my back, or the first people that I'm dropping into their arms, have been Luke and Kane. So those guys have been there through it all, and I was happy that they were here for the final camp, and I'm hoping that they can get out to Vegas this weekend and just kind of watch with the rest of the team.
Yeah, maybe they can stand outside the Apex to chat with you afterwards.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I think we've got a question for Sean about Dana White's Contender Series. Sean, it's Tuesday, so I feel like we've got to talk about this. This is where you got your start with the UFC. But besides your own moment on Contender Series, what's your favorite?
Yeah, that's tough. I've not really watched it, to be honest. I might watch it tonight when there's not a lot going on. I've never really watched it. I know a couple of my buddies have been signed through it, so probably them getting a contract, but I don't know. I haven't watched it too much.
Okay, let me give you a different question then that I think you'll be able to answer. Will there be a tattoo on this Vegas trip? And what will it?
If I was able to, if it wasn't too risky, yeah, I'd probably get a little something. But no, there's no plans of that. Trying to just get to the fight. That's the main focus, is staying quarantined and getting to the fight. Afterwards,
you need to maybe live stream it for us. Let us know on Instagram so we can follow along if there's a tattoo.
Absolutely.
Okay. DC. Okay, this is a question that I'm interested to hearing because I know how much time and effort you put into the EA Sports video game. So you're the new ratings adjuster. What's the biggest thing you're going to look for with fighters?
Just advancement. Just advancement in the game. As Sean said, I'm going to talk to you about Sean O'Malley if I'm doing his rating in the game. Sean O'Malley says that I've called every one of his fights. So with that being said, I've watched him, but every time I speak to him, he speaks to us about the evolution of his ground game. We haven't seen it yet, but if Saturday comes and Sean O'Malley spends an extended time on the ground and he does very well, that rating in the game, which may be a 3.5, it may go to a 4. I'll call the people and be like, hey, O'Malley showed a lot of improvement in his game. He spoke about it for a long time, and we finally got to see it in live action. So I believe we should look at raising that part of his character. And that's just how it's going to go. I'm going to watch the fights, as I always do, and then I'll talk about the improvements, and then I'll apply that to the areas that the guys use in the octagon for their in-game character. You know what I'm saying, O'Malley? O'Malley always tells me how much time he spent when he was hurt grappling, but I haven't had to see it yet. So when I get to see that grappling, then I'm going to raise the level of his guy in the game.
You've seen this right bomb a few times.
I've seen the right hand a few times. I saw it last time. It was different, right? It was, as soon as he got in the range, he threw it, and the guy just fell back, and I was like, oh my God! Like it just keeps happening. The guy
that little uppercut too on Jose put his lights out.
Yeah. So we just keep it. It's just whatever they do in the octagon is what's going to happen in the game.
You've really got your pulse on this, DC, because we're getting all these fan questions. I'm gonna ask one now about Sean and just kind of commenting on his grappling. So Sean, this one from a fan. Everybody's saying you haven't shown anything on the ground, but we know you love knocking people out. So what will be more satisfying, a knockout or a choke against Cheeto?
Knocking them out. I love knocking people out. It's what I love to do. That's what the fans want. I think they, seeing us. I love submissions. I love jiu-jitsu. It's my favorite sport by far. But knocking people out is the best feeling. And I think the fans, they do want to see a submission from me because I knock everyone out. But I think ultimately if I go out there and knock him out the way I plan, it's going to be way more exciting than if I go out there and choke him.
Okay, you will get no complaints from me and DC on that one. Daniel, one for you. I think this is interesting. Who do you consider one of the toughest opponents you've faced in your career? And do you feel like there are opponents maybe the fans have overlooked as being really tough, but you're like, no, that guy was a huge challenge?
They've all been tough. I mean, obviously Jones is super tough. Miocic is as tough as they come. But, Alexander Gustafsson, because on that night in Houston, he took me to places that I'd never really been. I had cruised in 5-round fights outside of Jones, and I was beat up, I was battered, I was bruised, to the point that the next morning I was laying in bed. My daughter, who at the time was 4, she walked in and goes, "Dad, what's wrong?" Because I had my eyes were closed, I couldn't walk, and we're walking through the airport with me with sunglasses on, trying for people not to see me. So that was probably the most difficult fight that I've ever had. And honestly, even in wins and losses, that still may be one of the toughest fights I've ever had because he was just so good everywhere.
That one was in Houston?
It was in Houston, UFC 192. Yeah, it was a very, very difficult fight. Yeah. But they've all been tough. I mean, this is the 11th straight title fight that I've been in or they were intended to be in. That's crazy. Like, I've only got 15 UFC fights. I ended up fighting Anderson, but I was scheduled to fight Jones at UFC 200. So it's like this is the 11th straight intended title fight in my career. Only got 15 UFC fights. It's crazy.
Oh my God. That really is crazy when you put it that way.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's also
the best.
Yeah, I mean, it's also a testament to who you are as an athlete as well.
I've been lucky.
I would say more than lucky, skilled and lucky. Sean, we're getting a lot of questions here about your time as a champion. We know that's what you want in the future. And a lot of people are kind of wondering what that roadmap looks like when you predict you will be able to wear that gold around your waist.
Next year for sure. I think it's it depends how I finish Cheeto. I go out there, win a decision. I'm not fighting that next big dude. I go out there and put his lights out. I'm fighting the next big dude. So it depends how I go out there and win this fight. And I got to get through Cheeto. You know, he's won his last 6. He's 5 finishes, never been finished in the UFC or ever. And he's had 10 plus fights in the UFC or 10. And you know, this is a tough opponent. I'm not looking past him. But I think 2021 will be the year I get the strap.
Excellent.
You know, can I ask him a question? Sure.
Yeah, go for it.
You always talked about like when you wanted to advance. Like, is after this one, would you be ready to go and fight a top 10 guy? You think?
Yeah, Cheeto's top 10. He won that last fight. If he won that last fight, where would he be at in the rankings? Mm-hmm. I think he'd be, maybe number 10. That'd be 6 in a row for him. If you go watch that fight, he won that fight. There's just no, how the judges are. It's ridiculous. So I think this is the top 10. I think this, in my eyes, this is a top 10 opponent. And after him, yeah, we'll see who's next. I know there's fights getting booked right now. I thought maybe I'd get that Cody fight, but he did the smart thing, dipped, and we'll see who's next.
Fair enough. DC, we got a question earlier today, and it was because we think this is your last fight. Mm-hmm. Only you can answer that. But should the UFC give you a retirement gift of the gold watch, what would you engrave on the inside?
Give me a gold watch. Is there do they give away gold watches?
I think this is a trend sometimes, yes. Really? And then you're supposed to put like a motto or saying inside that got you through that time.
Sugar?
Well, honestly, me probably just, I don't know, something. So it would. I'm so cliche. It would be my kids' names, or it'd probably be something like "Embrace the Grind." You know, I've always kind of just embraced that grind of training, of fighting, of just wrestling. You know, that whole idea that through hard work I could accomplish anything. And I'd probably put that, like, just embrace the grind, or there are no limits. Because you never know. I'm a kid from Lafayette, Louisiana that had nothing. And look at me today. There are no limits. It's probably what I'd put in there.
A huge inspiration. In fact, personally, we were just talking about this in my house about what an inspiring journey you've had through combat sports. I mean, starting with wrestling, through your college wrestling and Olympic wrestling careers to where you are now. Daniel, do you ever have the time, or do you ever allow yourself to actually look at that journey and from those points that were really challenging to where you are now?
I think you take it all in when it's done. Right? You live in the moment. You know, you enjoy the fruits of your labor when you're done. Because if I start looking at the entire journey, then you start feeling like you've accomplished more than you ever thought you could. You start feeling and living in that happiness of getting out, because there was not many avenues to get out of where I came from. And I don't want to live in that. I want to live in the idea that I can do something even bigger. Because the moment you get to the finish line, you got to push it back. That's what I've done my whole life. I just kept moving the finish line. And now the finish line is Saturday, right? And winning the grandest prize in all the fighting on my very last fight, that doesn't happen often.
Certainly doesn't. Sean, it seemed like you were really taking a lot from what Daniel's been saying these past few minutes. He's called all your fights, like you said, and now you're the co-main event to this insane heavyweight trilogy. I mean, could you have imagined this just a couple of years ago?
I think Daniel asked Dana if I could be the co-main, if I heard right. No, I'm joking. Yeah, no, this is a legendary card. Every time I fight, I'm always the main event in my head. I'm the main event. No matter what card I've been on, I've been the main event. So to be on this one, I feel like, the main event is Cormier and Stipe, and it's crazy I'm on this. I was walking around my pool. I got out of my cold plunge, and I was freezing. I was walking around my pool last night, and I started laughing a little bit, like, from the Contender Series, I've always had visions, big visions for myself, and it was crazy that I'm co-main event for this, the most legendary trilogy fight of all time. So yeah, this is amazing.
Daniel, that's something I wanted to ask you about because you play this role of commentator as well, and you've watched Sean's entire career with the UFC. For you to see a guy to do what he's done from Contender Series to now this co-main event slot and do so well with the fans and the platform that he's given, I mean, what really do you see from Sean O'Malley so far?
I mean, right away, obviously, when he fought and everybody went crazy and the Snoop reactions were so insane, but he was just a kid, he was just a normal kid that was fighting, and he had a personality, he had charisma, and he had a great fighting style. Right. But as I look at Sean today, from when he was on the Contender Series, I see evolution. Right. I see evolution in his character. I see evolution in his ability to connect with the fans, because everything that you do has to be truly organic. These people have to come to you. They have to feel like they relate to you. And that's why they support you. And I feel like he's done a fantastic job of finding where he belongs in the sport and just getting to that point and then exploding through it and going to the next level. So now it's not going to be just Sean O'Malley fans. It'll be general sports fans and not MMA fans. You just got to keep pushing through the ceiling every time you get to a barrier. And I feel like at this point, this is a young man that hasn't been hitting very long. He's got 1 million Instagram followers already. That is a massive accomplishment for such a young fighter. And it speaks, and even his hair, even the hair. When I first saw it, I was like, oh my God, he's got his hair like 6'9" Tekashi, right? He had 6'9" Tekashi. And I was like, what is going on? But then I watched him fight with it, and I was like, it's actually pretty cool. It grew on me. And now he's got the flag of his opponent's country in his hair. It's like all these things, these little things are things that make people take notice. And that's what you have to do. I always tell the young wrestlers, man, I'm like, you guys go to the center of the octagon and go, whoever the UFC says next. I go, it'll never equate to the big dollars. You got to stand out, and that's what Sean O'Malley's doing. But he's got to keep winning.
Thank you, my brother.
He's got to keep winning, because ultimately, that's the only thing that matters. And the reason it's all clicking is because he's winning, and he's winning in impressive fashion.
Absolutely. I love hearing that. I think this is so cool to be able to share that. Sean, speaking of the hair, a lot of people were asking, including one of our fans, Rodrigo, how did you decide to do that with your hair?
I don't remember. I knew I had to do something. The colorful hair, after I got it, I was like, I like this. I don't want to have normal hair again. So, we got the Cheeto fight booked, and it just made sense. It made sense to represent my Ecuadorian fans, and Danny does my hair, and she's amazing. So she always does a really good job, and it just happened.
She does an amazing job, that is for sure.
Yes.
All right, we got another fan question from Zach Osborne. DC, this one's for you. I'm 10 years old from Sydney, Australia. Mm-hmm. DC is my favorite UFC athlete, and I was wondering what's the best way to get better at wrestling?
Just practice. Just keep on practicing. It'll feel clunky. It'll feel odd, but just keep practicing. There are a number of things, Zach, that you can do by yourself. Just hit single legs. Go through your steps. Put 2 pieces of tape on the ground. That's one where you start your wrestling stance, and the second one is where you finish your shot. Do that hundreds and hundreds of times, and you'll be fine. And even if the success doesn't come right now, stick with it. It's a tough sport, but I promise you, once you're all said and done, you'll be better for it. Most wrestlers work harder than most people work their entire lives when they're 10 years old. So just keep learning. Keep applying yourself, and stick those pieces of tape on the ground. Start in position, finish in position on your shots, and it'll work for you.
Daniel, you're such a good coach, and we've seen you obviously coaching for years. For you, is there one more than another that you enjoy in terms of coaching versus commentating, or do you like doing it all? I mean, what's it like for you?
The reason I get so excited when I watch a guy like Sean O'Malley or talk about, I'm a fan of his sport. Like, I love this sport. I love mixed martial arts, and I love calling the fights. But my passion in my heart is with wrestling, because I coach wrestling for nothing. I coach wrestling for nothing but to help more wrestlers get an opportunity to do the things that I did. That's it. And I enjoy it. I enjoy seeing the development. I enjoy seeing kids sign scholarships. We've had in 2 years at Gilroy, we've signed 14 kids to athletic scholarships in college. That's a massive accomplishment for our program. So I love mixed martial arts like nothing else, but I enjoy coaching. I love coaching wrestling. I love coaching fighters, and I'm going to do more of it once I'm done.
And as somebody who's with you backstage when you are calling fights, I don't think people know that you'll have your earphones in watching live matches, coaching.
Oh, yeah. I don't think you're supposed to tell people that. Like, you're not supposed to say that. Whenever there have been times where my kids have been in big tournaments, O'Malley, where I take my phone and I just stick it down on the table, and I'll look down to check the score every now and again.
I meant before, not during.
I try to stay on task.
All right. So now I got DC in trouble. Let's move on from that. Sean, actually, this is kind of cool. Somebody is saying that they made an intro for you and Tim's podcast. And they're hoping to be able to shoot content with you down the line. But he just wanted to tell you he made an intro, and he's a huge fan of you and hopes you're going to do great things. I mean, you've got a lot of success with this podcast that hasn't been on very long.
Yeah, the Timbo Sugar Show. The intros, just the art in general that the fans make is insane. I always enjoy checking it out. The intros are always amazing, and we have a ton of backup intros, and that we have enough that we could probably do a new intro every podcast. But yeah, the podcast is something we do, the Timbo Sugar Show, once a week, and if you've listened to it, we just kind of say whatever. We don't really monitor ourselves too much, and it's definitely not for everyone, but it is growing and it's getting bigger, and it's something that we enjoy doing, and it doesn't feel like it's not a job. It's we talk for an hour every week, so yeah, I enjoy it.
My nutritionist's girlfriend, she loves their show. She can't talk about their show enough and some of the topics that they talk about. I haven't really heard much of it. Some of the things she goes, she loves it, and I'm like, oh man,
it's good.
That's right there.
It's good.
I love that. Speaking of your nutritionist, DC, we got some questions for you regarding food. One of them was about the ribs that you were cooking on Embedded. Oh, yeah. So what's the first meal that you'll eat after your fight on Saturday?
The reality is, I don't have to do that anymore because I'm a heavyweight, right? I don't have to, really, take much out. You just have to eat clean versions of everything, right? So if I want red beans and rice, he makes me red beans and rice, but it's not with andouille sausage and spicy sausage and pork chops and all that in it. It's just made with chicken or it's made with chicken andouille sausage. He just finds better ingredients to feed me. So I don't have to really wait for anything anymore because I'm small enough under 265 that I don't have to worry about the weight. When I was down at 205 though, and I was really depleting myself, I would always eat gumbo or something from Louisiana. It could be UFC 200, middle of the summer in Las Vegas. I get back to San Jose, 95 degrees, and I'm eating a big bowl of gumbo, which is a soup that's so hot, usually saved for the winter. But I had to get my hands on some of that Louisiana food, I tell you that.
I love that. What they want to know, also, we had a question, what was your favorite Cajun meal of all time?
Honestly, I think we have a few, right? So it's the dirty rice, gumbo, red beans and rice, and jambalaya. Those are our four main ones. Mine is red beans and rice. It's the best. My mom used to make it so good, and it would taste so good. And I could smell it. My high school was 100 yards away from the house, and I could smell it in my classes. I'm like, I can't wait to get home to get some of this red beans and rice. So yeah, red beans and rice is my best. It's got kidney beans in it. It's got sausage. It's got pork. It's got everything. It's just all goodness. And then it's all Sean. And then Sean, listen. I will send it. I'll get your address and send you some frozen after you make weight. Sean, I'm telling you, you are going to love it. Every one of those, you see it on your tongue, there are a number of taste buds. It will hit every single one of those taste buds. It touches every taste bud individually, and then it's like euphoria. It's the best.
That's how food tastes after you.
Really?
That's what I've heard. I don't know.
I'm not going to sit here and pretend I've never smoked, but I've never
That's how
it's amazing, you know.
All right, Sean, I saw you drinking that water as DC was describing this incredible meal. So that being said, how's the weight cut and what are you going to eat? Because you're actually cutting weight.
Yeah, it's Tuesday, so we got Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday morning. Honestly, I don't feel too bad. A lot of water, not a lot of calories. But this is my third fight in 6 months, so I'm getting it down to it's the same thing I did 2 fights ago, last fight. And now it's just, it feels super normal. I fought a couple months ago, so it's not too bad. Thursday, ask me and I'll have a different answer. But right now, I'm not too bad.
The crazy thing about fighting that often is that the weight cuts get easier and the nerves completely change, right? Because when you fight so soon, normally you're so nervous. I remember when I was going from Gustafsson to Anderson the very next summer, and I felt so nervous for some reason, but those 3 fights with Jones, Rumble, and Gustafsson in a year, it was no problem. So I can understand that the weight gets easier, and he'll be in the back just like, I was just here, right? I was just here. This is nothing different than what I did a few weeks ago. So, yeah, man, it's great to compete often, but that's safe for the young guys. We old men don't do that. We don't fight as often.
All that being said, all right, before I let you gentlemen go, we need to know your predictions for each of your fights. Sean, I'll start with you.
Prediction for my fight?
Yeah.
I think everyone knows what my prediction is. First round knockout. I'm a fast starter. He's a slow starter. I put not just my hands, my shins, my knees. I put it on people's chins. I think he's been hit a lot, but he gets hit on the top of the head. I hit people on the chin. I put people's lights out. I think he's hitting the canvas and won.
Big prediction there. DC, what about you for your own fight?
And new again. That's it. And new again. For the second time. 2-time UFC heavyweight champion, 2-time UFC light heavyweight champion. That's it. And new again. And new again.
Man, I'm so excited, and I'm so honored to be able to work this fight card that both of you are on Saturday night on pay-per-view, which is on ESPN+, UFC 252. Sean and Daniel, thank you guys so much for joining me today. We appreciate you answering all these fan questions.
Thank you so much. Sean, have good luck. Good week. Get that weight down. I'll see you this weekend sometime.
Yep, good luck, champ. See you, Megan. Right. Bye, Joseph.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.